Richard Tice and uh, Nigel Farage have launched a thing which is being called the employer immigration tax plan. It's a new policy, and it's a policy to tax employers who employ foreign workers rather than national workers. Tice uh, has just, in the last few minutes, addressed a meeting saying that the addiction to the drug of cheap overseas workers has proved to be too compelling, an addiction pushed by both Labour and the Conservative Party. And he says we need a cure. And the cure that he is proposing is the employer immigration tax, which will incentivise businesses to hire British workers rather than foreign workers. It will raise £20 billion to train young people, and it will end Britain's deadly addiction to mass immigration. And smart immigrants can be great, he says, for overseas, and the cost is borne by the UK taxpayer. We are paying for them to come and work here. The consequence of their working here is lower wages for British workers. He says it's unfair to young British people leaving school and university. Well, those young British people who leave school and university, having been equipped with degrees and with skills, quite often go off to work in other countries like Australia or New Zealand or America because it is so frustrating to work in the UK. That doesn't mean that if we stop employing foreign workers, we are going to fill those jobs left vacant. You only have to look at our NHS system crumbling because we have closed the door to quite a large group of foreign workers, and the system was dependent on their goodwill. Once Brexit happened, they left, and we are spent wondering what's going on. And in the meantime, the Conservative Party, particularly the party of government for the last 14 years, does everything to blame anything other than Brexit. The only way to restore the NHS is to forge a better relationship with Europe, or indeed to undo Brexit. The only way. This immigration tax will further isolate Britain from the rest of the world at a time when we are more than ever dependent on whatever help we can get, whether that's from India or China. Whatever help we can get, we are dependent on that because we have closed the doors to help from Europe. And when we are looking for help, help is not going to come if we don't allow people to bring their families and their spouses, and if we don't cater for them as well. And of course, increasingly, the absurd policies of the Home Office are making that very difficult. We are teaching so many foreign students, and they would automatically be working as our ambassadors in their countries to promote people to come here, work here, and contribute to our health and our betterment. But instead, they're going back and they're saying, don't go to Britain, don't spend £36,000 simply on tuition, when a British student will be spending 11,000. Don't spend 30-odd thousand a year on tuition, simply to be thrown out of the country with a grunt and a goodbye, to be treated like dirt the moment the degree is in your hands, or even before the degree is in your hands, because so many people in the last year didn't have their degrees marked in time to even get into the job market, because the people who were supposed to be teaching them went on strike, and nothing was done to challenge that. These people have bought into a system, and that system has let them down. So I think it's very interesting that now we are blaming them yet again through Tice and Farage. I wonder what Bernard Sunley would have to say to that. I can remember many happy afternoons in Godmersham Park, and I'm sure Richard Tice can as well. And I would be very interested to know what he would have to say, what he would have to say to his grandfather about the foreign workers that his grandfather used in building sites and to boost productivity in his own companies, that led him to a position where he could act as a generous benefactor to things like the National Gallery and so on, the extraordinary extension of the National Gallery. And, you know, I think you've got to practice what you preach. And I think it's so important that people who have been given so many opportunities pass that on. It's to quote Hector from the History Boys, it's passing the parcel. But I know many teachers in Uppingham, where Richard Tice was a schoolboy, gave the same message. I know, because I've been to Uppingham. Indeed, I preached in the chapel a few times. So Richard Tice, I think, is not practicing what he preaches with this income, with this employer immigration tax. It sounds interesting. It sounds aggressive. It sounds as if he means what he's saying, but in the end, he's not thought it through. And when he arrived at the meeting, he stood for the photographers with his hands out as if he was conferring some sort of blessing. I'm not blessed.